Hello, everyone, and welcome. In this recording, I'm going to be speaking about this new moon in the sign of Cancer taking place on the 25th of June 2025. Uh, right off the bat, I know that there is a strong synchronicity here, numeric synchronicity 2525. So that already in itself says that this is a special. Um, but before we get to the new moon, I just want to look at the present moment. So I'm recording this on the 16th of June because there's a lot taking place and it in a way it ties into the new moon, especially the astral context at the time of the new moon. So what the new moon is, getting involved in, so to speak. And it's only a few days apart, so it's not even, that big deal time-wise. So, on one hand, we are experiencing right now the Mars and Uranus square and Mars in an erratic Leo. Very powerful, very strong, quite, let's say, violent, if we can use this terminology, and very close to Regulus. And we see the leaders, basically every leader in the world, expressing either their opinion or something, while others are issuing very powerful commands. Uranus is the disruption, it is the chaos, it is the uncertain, but also it is that which was unavoidable finally, uh, sorry, showing itself or finally uh, being unleashed. So it's a very, very frightening, it's a very scary energy, but this energy in itself ties into the one of the most uh powerful, if this is clichéic, but that's really the only way we can describe it, the most powerful aspect that dominates everything else, and that's the Jupiter and Saturn square along with Neptune. Now, Jupiter and Saturn, in this, if we just separate the square to Jupiter and Saturn, that in itself really, really challenges what we believe, what we want to believe, what is healthy to believe for us personally, for our family, for who it is that we are, based on our roots, based on our culture, based on where we live, the Cancer type of energy. And then, of course, Aries. Aries represents who we are in the very core of our being. That might, let's say, be different or not necessarily tie into our upbringing, family, ethnicity, cultural, all of that, because Aries can be very much genetic. It is the genetic configuration and the genetic identity, if that makes sense, of who it is that we are. So these energies are in friction. These energies are clashing, and of course, it is up to us to find the middle ground, to find the right balance, to find an expression of this energy which serves our greater good. Now, individually, it's very clear the multilateral ways in which this plays out in our lives, religiously, philosophically, in our personal lives, family lives, relationships, work, career. What do we believe? And how much importance do our beliefs matter? Our beliefs versus the collective beliefs, collective ideology. This is just an example. Or our beliefs versus ancient wisdom, or our beliefs versus religious beliefs. It can Collectively, however, it's very clear how this is playing out. It is very much the will of the individual versus what is imposed upon them. Aries can represent the head, Saturn definitely the authority figure. Anytime when Saturn is in Aries, usually the sorry, all authoritarian finally element really shows itself. It steps one way or another into the spotlight. Now, that can be, for example, if you're a child, your parents, teacher, any. If we are just the citizen, of course, that's the government, enforcement of law, politicians, even because they decide what needs to be the law and what not. So anything that is the sometimes it's just us. In certain areas of our lives, it's just us. It's no one, nothing else. It's us versus, or you know what I mean, us, ourselves. In any way, shape, or other times, well, some people have like leadership jobs. They are the authoritarian figure and the authoritarian figure. They themselves play a role like that, not just for the self. So everything that is like that gets into the spotlight for various different reasons. With Israel and Iran, we see the reason is very obvious. In the United States, why the authoritarian figures are in the spotlight, that's also very obvious. But it plays out in very many ways, not just the very uh, strongly out there, hard to ignore. It also plays out in the subtle, in perhaps that which we might not necessarily see directly, and that's the realm of Neptune. So it as above, so below. As in the ether, so in matter. So this means that directions of the spirit are changing in the ether. The spirit itself is also reconfiguring its own inner balance and dynamics, etc., etc. And this manifests here on earth as well and within our psyches. The leadership of the being who it is we are is all of a sudden we just wake up to the fact that it's different. We no longer tolerate what we always use. Sometimes all of our lives we used to tolerate quite easily. We can no longer play along this and that. We can no longer, for example, be part, support, participate in something that really doesn't resonate with any part of our being just for the sheer sake of the experience or to, look well in the eyes of certain people or society or anything like that. So we're a bit different. Our standards, what we can tolerate and what we not, what we desire and what we no longer, what happiness means to us, anything that, is correlated to that is all of a sudden different. So under this square, we are discovering also how different we are, how different inner rules and laws and inner balances run our lives so differently. So the old, the usual, the classic self does no longer is not a viable navigation system. The self which we used to know, well, that's a memory. That's a closed chapter. That's almost like looking back at childhood. You can only look back. You can't be it in that way, even for us big children, people who have that really juvenile spirit. For example, for me astrologically, that can look like my Gemini moon, but it's still not the same. You're embodying the spirit of it, but as you can as a grown adult. When you're a child, it's different. You're in a different time. Everything is different. So that's what I mean. When we look back at childhood, we look back, it's one-way ticket. We can't really change it. Okay, we can, in the sense that psychoanalysis, therapy, forgiveness, reliving, but that's a methodology. Classically, it's not meant, you know what I mean? So that's exactly the old self story. It had its period, but now we are different because the inner balance is different. It is almost like when an operating system is not just patched, but the next version is out. So the old one is not this, it may do the same, it may not be totally outdated yet, but you know what I mean? It's still the new one is the future. So this is exactly what this energy is telling us. On one hand, it is acting upon the meeting of Saturn and Jupiter that took place on 21st December 2020. And this is an opening square. So what does this energy want to say? Well, it wants to say, how are you planning to advance further into this new paradigm? 2020 was stepping into it. We really didn't know what was coming. Now we may not see the big picture, right? But we are no strangers now. We're not total newbies. We need to learn, we need to adapt. Our survival depends on it. So this is exactly what's happening. And in order for us to adapt, certain energies need to clash. Certain reality checks need to take place. The world isn't the same as it was a few years ago. And for uh people who aren't necessarily in their 20s, that's a big deal because for us, it's like literally stepping into one dimension, from one dimension into another that is different. I experienced this once more or before when I was a child, when there was a huge regime change in my country. But okay, it's the same experience, so the experience is familiar, but when you're a child, it's different. It's really, really different. You can adapt to it so easily, and if I'm allowed to use this word, much more easily. Now it's different. It it takes a lot. It takes a lot to get used to it. And this is exactly what this energy is doing. How used to it are we? How comfortable, uncomfortable are we? Exactly what do our belief systems, personal ideologies, our own personal philosophies, our relationship with the cosmos and the divine? And this is where to have a relationship, before it was non-optional. Now, sorry, it was optional. Sorry. Now it's non-optional for the sheer sake of even survival. So again, all of this needs to be acknowledged. We can't navigate just with Mercury. We can't navigate into the future in this new paradigm just with our classic down to earth sense of logic and ration and what we were taught. We need both the instinctual, the gut, Virgo, the domains of Virgo, and Scorpio for that matter. But we also need the higher Aquarius, the higher mind, and our own philosophical muscle. Again, Sag, Aquarius are the higher mind. So we're really, really stepping into that energy. And for us to be successful at it, success, of course, for us personally, for our own evolution, for our own adaptation, we really need to let this square play out within ourselves so that we can determine how it plays out collectively. Um, So that's why we see that it's kind of scary right now. Uranus is shaking things up. Accidents, explosions, protests, uprising, violence, Chiron conjunct Aries. So the wound is severe. The wound is also felt by everyone, not just the wounded person or whatever, everyone. The wound is empathic. The wound, this is where it cannot be stopped. It is spreading. The pain of the wound is spreading everywhere. It's an invisible force that you can't do anything about. So that means the rebellion is spreading, the uprising is spreading. Really, the energies are getting to one of their peaks. But the summer is going to be loaded with peaks. So it's really like a machine gun, and I'm so sorry to use this horrid and horrible analogy. So now let's get to the new moon in the sign of Cancer because it's gonna be a very powerful moment. Let me quickly wrap up the details because I philosophized so long at the introduction. So it's taking place at 4 degrees and 8 minutes of the sign of Cancer. Let's just stop here because the Sabian symbol is so powerful and it's so self-explanatory that the rest may not even matter. It matters, yeah, especially if you're a student of astrology, because you want to look at the aspects and the details. But really, in the energetic sense, the Sabian symbol is so synchronistic, powerful, relevant. It depicts prophetic, it depicts something big. It says the story of our times that we can't ignore it. So let's begin with that. So we are speaking about 4-5 degrees of the sign of Cancer. And the Sabian symbol is the following: an automobile, a car, wrecked by a train. How Uranian, right? And how, well, scary. It's not a nice picture. It's an accident also waiting to happen. The Uranus again, health and safety. So this new moon immediately rings an alarm bell because the new moon is not an instant energy. It is the conjunction, the meeting of the sun and the moon. So it is a portal of creation, the seeding, etc., etc. But also, any new moon is the darkness of the moon, that which we must discard. We push it down the black hole, right? Just like flushing it down the toilet. The new moon is also good for that. So we understand the Uranian nature, not just for the new moon itself, the Sabian symbol, but also Uranus himself is at 29 degrees of Taurus. Very powerful, very violent. Let's not sugarcoat this. Wrecking ball, earthquake, it really, really strong energy. So the Uranian element is predominant. It is out there. It is, almost like, I'm not sure if you listening at home ever were near like an uh power station or anything where there's a lot of electricity. Like train stations do have a generator or stuff like that where the electricity is really concentrated and amped up. There's that buzz. And that buzz like penetrates the body. You can almost feel the tension. You can feel the power there. You feel it definitely in your brain and in your middle ear or how you call it. That's the tone of the astral on that 25th of June due to that Uranus. That's how an erratic Uranus feels like an energy. And it's active. So again, going back to health and safety, this new moon is a wonderful opportunity in a very technical sense even to prevent hazards. If there is something faulty or an accident waiting to happen, something neglected, ignored, for example, some safety device, the boiler inspection, uh, you get what I mean. Either personally, professionally, at work, car, planes, right? Planes. This is the perfect seed of intention moment to fix it, put it right, avoid the disaster, avoid the accident. Let's not play with fire, etc., etc., etc. Otherwise, it will lead surely very soon to the unavoidable. So this goes collectively as well. This opens like a window of opportunity 3 months to 6 months after the new moon. Let's put certain things right. Cancer and also Saturn, borders. Where's the limit? When I say borders, even in a literal sense, the borders of countries, nation, ethnicity, all of the conflict things right now, the big motives for many conflicts in many contexts, not just the one we know of or the ones we know of, any in any way, shape, and form, even within a country, members of certain part, except border states, counties, local administration, centralized administration. These power dynamics play out very strongly. Uh, so that's the heated. It's almost like the new moon amps this up even more than it already is. And why is that Jupiter expands it? So what does the train hitting the car also mean? Well, it means that whatever has power unavoidably will crush that which is of less power. Let me use a non-violent context. Let's say there are two stars. The more massive star is gonna either devour the less dense or shoot it into the cosmos through their orbital dance, where it will accelerate the less massive one and then slingshot it out from the orbit. This is the only two-way power dynamics can play out. There is no other way around, ultimately, because this is one of the fundamental laws of the cosmos. So, classically speaking, one would interpret the Sabian symbol as the power of people. You can't go against the power of people and the masses, etc., etc. In this day and age, can you even interpret it like that? Do people have the power really? This is a big question here. So, do you know why I'm not joining my fellow mystics into uh, wanting to highlight one of the highest aspects of the Sabian symbol, the power of the people? Do people even have the power? Or does their mobile phone and entertainment provided by it, but when I say entertainment, that neurological stimuli, which is physical, that all of us are addicted to. You wouldn't be listening to this horoscope if not, because you're listening to it on a device. You're addicted to it. Want it or not, like it or not, admit it or not. So where's the power of the people? But there should be one. Let not believe that the other side has all the power, because maybe it does in physical reality, but this is Neptune, really. This is where the strongest planet in the square, well, it's actually Neptune. And Neptune is the realm of faith, the realm of spirit, the realm of where it doesn't matter if it's impossible or possible, because for the divine anything is possible. Uh, just like you in your dreams, when you realize that you're in the dream, that's when you can pull the buttons. The divine is ultimately the ultimate force. And Jupiter Neptune square, the divine allows the inner divine within us, itself within us, to shape and mold reality just like it does. But we need to be aware of this and actually do this. Saturn is the limiting principle, and we understand what takes away our liberty. Us being immersed in an electric universe which is not all that beneficial to us at the time of the full moon. Sorry, new moon. I repeat, at the time of the new moon. Not generally speaking, I'm not going into philosophies at the time of the new moon, those days preceding and after, because we should really be in our spiritual authority big time, and we should be work Saturn, sacrifice works, what we want to make solid, what we want to initiate, Aries, Cancer, our word to say, our authority, our divine authority. We should be really working very, very hard. Again, the Saturn Jupiter square, to make sure that reality is going to be what we feed into it. Cancer is the sign of nurture, the food, the breast milk. But on a cosmic level, the breast of the universe, the breast milk of the universe. Cancer is the host of Sirius, the star of nurture, the cosmic sun, Isis, goddess Isis, even Hathor, the symbolism of the highest symbol of the sacred feminine, Cancer. So, what we feed reality with is ultimately what has to uh, manifest is such a cliche word here, has to become solid, become real, has to deliver us what we programmed into it ultimately. So this new moon invites all of us to do that big time, to burn all our spiritual muscle here. And all of us have this inner motor. All of us are born alchemists in that sense. All we need to do is fire up our reactor and start really using it. Because this is why Jupiter expands it. Jupiter is very powerful, very comfortable, very benevolent in the sign of Cancer. So Jupiter gives us a muscle. Imagine the new moon without Jupiter, having to meet Saturn, Neptune's, well, ultimately requirements on its own. Jupiter gives a good boost here. Jupiter is of great help here. Saturn is not all that strong in the sign of Aries, but that doesn't mean that it's not impactful. It can be violent. It can be cruel in the sign of Aries. It can be really taking no prisoners. And we see this play out on the world stage. Neptune, on the other hand, in the sign of Aries, is very much the brute energy of the spirit. It is not yet its highest expression. It is just a spark, but it's very, very powerful. It's like infinite, it's like the primordial soup. It is raw creative force. It is the essence of dreams. So it's very important that we really empower this new moon, especially collectively. Why collectively? Again, Aries, the individual, Cancer, the community. It's the interhuman connection, families. We live in a quantum age, right? Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. Families are just families everywhere. Your archetype is the same as you anywhere, everywhere. It's easy to quantumly connect and lend maybe those archetypes who are in deep trouble right now your strength. And what do we do with this energy? Well, without a shadow of a doubt, when I'm saying to use our power and our faith, I don't mean in an egocentric way. This isn't about personal wish fulfillment. This isn't about what you want to see for you personally, about your religion, culture. This isn't the earthly. This is exactly about the non-earthly, Isis, the divine feminine, the most sacred. This is really Guanyin energy, where everyone is just the same. We're just people. People are the same everywhere. So every person deserves peace. Every person deserves divine nurture. So when the situation is like this, when we don't know what's true and not, and this is a fact, the only truth is that we cannot discern what is true and not true, especially not by what is present or what we can see with our eyes. So we need to rely upon the electromagnetic field of the earth, so our gut, our instinct, that which also steers migratory birds continents apart and they find the exact same spot. So we also have that. When we don't know what's true or not, that is the truth we can anchor ourselves into. So our only option is to call in the highest divine powers, exactly the powers of the sacred feminine, of the sacred virgin or Guanyin or any side of the divine feminine you are connected to. Because ultimately, it is the Divine Mother that can stop rage and aggression. And Aries, with Saturn especially, is kind of a very strong masculine patriarchal energy, especially when it cannot keep it together. Of course, a mother needs to step into the picture to pour some sense into, and I'm speaking about the energy of it, the spirit of it. So we must call upon the spirit of mercy, the spirit of compassion, the spirit of love, and give it almighty strength. Make it the ruler of reality, especially at the time of the new moon, because that can change a lot. Where maybe physically we can't, but this is how we view fate, where we really empower that which we need to see triumph. The train, the Sabian symbol of the train. If we become the train, if love, but again, not the ego, not the selfishness of it, but really we need to rise above this. We so much above where we also accept that death is part of the cosmos, part of the grand order of things, and a necessary part of nature. Death is not the enemy here. What is the enemy is grand deception and slavery of the spirit, of free will. That so we need to rise above and really invite the divine love into the world. Not the selfish survival love, but truly the most elevated divine love, which is above all, which is truly almighty. That is our most sacred mission at the time of this new moon. And let me just color the picture. Also conjunct the new moon is a trans-Neptunian object named Chaos, Tiamat, is one symbol of the representation of chaos, raw creational energy, that which respects nothing, conjunct Jupiter expanding its power. Um what is the role of chaos? To unite heaven and earth, not to be division, love to be absolute, all encompassing in a extreme absolute way. That's why it shakes everything up. So chaos is exactly the card, the ace that can turn the Joker card, that can turn the tides. Where maybe we cannot uncreate a bomb, a nuke, etc., etc., but we can invoke the power of peace that stops it, that makes it purposeless, that makes it just a museum piece. We have the power to call in what we need. Almost like, when the sponge sucks in water, the divine energy, all of us can just channel it into our reality, and it will take the shape of what is needed. And that's, as I said, love, peace, compassion, maturity. So this is what we need to really be doing collectively at the time of this new moon, passionately, strongly, powerfully, with deep faith and conviction that the power of love is truly almighty. Let it be a miracle if needs to be, but we must disown that the human spirit is aggressive and so cruel and unforgiving as what is going on in the present, in all sides of this, in any way, shape, and form, all over the world. Another energy is where it squares a fellow trans-Neptunian object in Aries at almost 3 degrees of Aries named Borasisi. Now, this is gonna be a bit, again, the collective picture is not pretty. It's not gonna be nice because there is fighting, war, aggression, borders. There is gonna be a lot of so Borasisi is paternal wound when the parent rejects the child, especially the father. So you can imagine this plays out both in collective psychology on the world stage. So the wounds of patriarchy, right? Imperialism and stuff like that. Political systems, who holds the power, wounds in that. But at the same time, individually, so it's not gonna be easy individually either. Because family dynamics, mom, dad, partnerships, are we a family, are we not? Some families need to move, relocate. What do we do? What does the future hold for us? Because we see what it doesn't, obviously. The economy, and there is a lot of energy here. And with Saturn, time is up for a lot of things. Another trans-Neptunian object that does square it along with this Borasisi is Menue at 5 degrees of Aries. Menue is also the symbol of the divine masculine, patriarchy, leadership. It is quite a Saturnian energy, not in the cruelty sense, but it's masculinity and, it's a creational deity. So again, we see the clash with patriarchy. But with Menuet's case, Menuet, of course, finds the right way, the peaceful way. But it's urgent. The urgency is what Menuet highlights here. It needs to step in. The divine needs to step in. The creator needs to step in, right? Then another energy is, well, a sextile. Any new moon with sextile aspects means that seeds of intention and what you work towards, what you input into it, is going to be especially fruit bearing. More so if that power is Mars. So Mars holds a sextile with this new moon. And the sextile is exact to the degree. Very powerful. Mars in Virgo. Really strong executory energy, service energy, mastery energy, profession energy, sacrifice energy, and the energy of discernment. The dark side of Virgo is discrimination, but we see that play out on the world stage in so very many ways, big time, as it is actually time for that. South Node in Virgo must highlight where it is. That's the dark side. The light side, the good side of Virgo, is where it discerns right from wrong very, very quickly. It discerns, it knows that which is too far or that which is not enough. So it keeps in reality. And Mars is exactly good at that in the sign of Virgo. It does what it needs to do. It's action oriented. The power of intelligence, the power of solving it. Sometimes power of nature, power of hard work, power of sacrifice. It's also healthcare, service in any way, shape, and form. Service people. Cancer is the sign of the caregiver. Cancer is the act of the care, the energy of the healing, the energy of the plumber who saved your toilet, the energy that he did it, and how happy he made you that he fixed your problem, how happy you make him that you reward him. That's the synergy of the Virgo Cancer signs. So the sextile. Virgo it's an earth sign. It's mercurial, of course, so it's very rooted in science, in practical and nature, down to earth. However, it's not lacking spirit. Virgo is the energy which would rule the medicine woman, wise woman, nurse, along with Cancer. So it has a very strong spiritual side as well. Nature oriented, rationale oriented. However, that is not excluding. Virgo Pisces axis, of course, the juice of the spirit is in Pisces. However, it's an axis, so Virgo has its own, right? However, there's more to this. Mars is not alone here. It also sextiled by a hypothetical planet, Isis trans Pluto, that which we suspect to be planet. Anyway, you can just Google this or Wikipedia. It is based on a calculation that is where planet 9 should be. So even Neptune, before it was proven and discovered in a classic sense, it was just hypothesized the same way Isis trans Pluto. So it is Isis, the name says all, the divine feminine, the transformational power of fantasy, magic, faith, elation, emotion, how basically our magic feeds reality. Mars, the action principle, sextiling the new moon, sextiling Jupiter. This is where the power lies. So we can understand Isis trans Pluto as further elevating the energies of Cancer, because Isis as a deity is linked to Cancer. It's a very, very powerful day and days actually for magic. But the type of magic which is linked to love, linked to the divine feminine, deep faith, channeling, invoking in the aspect of the divine that which needs to do something because we're invoking it not out of ego, but because there is no other choice. As a human being, but even as a soul, at this present moment, this is the only thing you can do. So that's why it has so much power. Cancer is also the host at this new moon of Mercury. Very powerful. Mind, empathy, communion, especially the power of collective empathy and the miracles it can ultimately produce. Now, another thing that really says something big is that the new moon holds a quincunx, and in conjunction with Pluto, but so does Mars. That makes it a yod, pointing to Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, the people. On one hand, something hits the internet, it's viral, it's big, but there might be also something that goes wrong with the internet. But at the same time, this is where it's a fated energy. People, uprising, action, Mars, Virgo, healthcare, Virgo, service. There is gonna be something happening around this time. It is the beginning of new moon something. Jupiter is part of this law. Air, space, internet, long distance travel, aviation, but also science, international law. Ultimately, the power of faith. Mars, our will, Isis trans Pluto, the divine feminine, the highest divine expression is also watching, is part of this. And pointing to Pluto, the rich, the powerful, the power of the internet, the power of technology, but also the power of people, the power of the train, the Sabian symbol, that's the train. Pluto and Aquarius, the power of the train. What is gonna take place at this time because it's big? Some big surprises there. And Mercury in the sign of Cancer, all of us are going to feel it through. Now, Pluto also holds, at this moment, I can really include it as a valid energy, an outer sign trine. It's not in Gemini yet, but it's dipping with one foot into it. So that makes it hold the trine with Pluto. Pluto Uranus trines are always really important for progress. They are like quantum leaps. They are like the future is literally here. Surprise, surprise. So, whatever chaos, disruption, whatever we see at the time of the new moon, please remember that something much greater good than we could possibly imagine is going to result from that. So if it's scary, let's not panic, because this energy guarantees that something good is going to come out of it. But something good that it is predominant, it is big, it is powerful. Pluto, right? It impacts big time. It is relevant. It is it is a promise that we can believe in. Jupiter can be the promise. So, however, this trine is a longer term trine. So this lasts all of 2026, 2025, 2026, 2027 if I'm so this is a longer term energy. So remember, all the chaos and disruption that may happen in the present moment is gonna really turn into something positive and something, Aquarius, for the future of humanity, the greater good of all. And it will highlight the power of people, the power of many minds, many hearts, many consciousnesses linked together. This energy is one that proves that human species always has and had a sixth sense, empathy. We're a race of empaths. We don't necessarily need Mercury to communicate. We can feel each other even dimensions away. Feeling is much more intelligent than mind. Feeling is much more of the divine realm and language than mind and symbols that the mind uses. Feeling is a much superior. Mercury in Cancer, right? Is actually telling us this. The other thing that kind of speaks to us that it's not going to be the easiest and prettiest side is that the new moon is conjunct a fixed star, Propus, that is Saturnian of nature, pretty harsh, shamelessness, pride, prone to violence, etc., etc. So there is going to be violence. There is going to be things that are not pretty out there. There is going to be oppression, especially that the new moon also opposes the malevolent, malefic dwarf planet Ixion, so lawlessness, anarchy. There is going to be a strong clash here. Ixion squares Ceres food, and we see the food starvation problem, etc., etc., fight for food, but also the humanitarian convoys and the ships and the aid and the humanitarianism really uniting people like never before. Like we must really, and the internet is a massive tool for that. So we see one of the good sides and the Pluto, trine, Uranus sides of the internet where it can really connect people who have the same purpose, especially if that is loving, humanitarian. I don't even need to say any other words because it's all encompassing. This is the highest expression of Uranus on one hand, the ruler of Aquarius, and Aquarius itself. In tarot, it is the star card. So it's the symbol of our hopes and dreams, and humanity's hope and dream is, of course, is peace. And each and every day of our lives to honor the divine with our own joy. So this definitely is an important moment for all of us. So I invite everyone listening to this to really use all of your magic, all of your faith, all of your dreams, all of your divine spark at the time of this new moon to bring in the the, the energy, the power of mercy, of love, of care, of nurture, of protection, the power of people, really, regardless of how that looks like to you personally. So remember, all of us are alchemists and all of us are empaths. So thank you everyone for listening. I'm really wishing you a magical new moon. Until next time, bye for now.